We invite you to come along with us on our journey through ancient Israel's culture and language as we gather stones of insight, wisdom, and truth in order to repair the breach and restore the foundation of the path to dwell in on this walk with the Messiah. And now, foundation stones.
All right, so with that, I say good morning. Good morning. And I'm going to say this: no deep teaching today. No, nothing deep, but I want to share something. So, this week while I was preparing for this message, I sometimes I'll start praying, usually on Sunday afternoon, I'll start praying for this coming week's, what I need to share. And Wednesday, while I was preparing for Wednesday night, I'm going to talk about a movie. Hold on for just a minute. I'm going to talk about a movie. Some of you, has anybody ever seen the movie Rudy? Okay. A couple of you. Rudy. Okay. Well, I was preparing for the message, and this movie came on. Well, it happened to be a favorite of mine back in the 90s. It was made in the 90s. Okay. I'm going to show my age here, but the movie is based on a true story of Rudiger, and in 1972, Rudy went to visit Notre Dame University, and his father was a big Notre Dame football fan. So he goes to visit Notre Dame, and he finds out that his academics are not good enough to get into the college. Okay, and anyways, with the help of a priest, he gets enrolled in Holy Cross University, which is not too far from Notre Dame. Anyways, he sees this guy that's a groundskeeper. He asks this guy for a job that works at Notre Dame, and the old fellow's name is Fortune. And anyways, Rudy don't have anywhere to stay. Now, I mean, he's going to college, but he has no place to live. And so he is sneaking into the groundskeeper's facilities and sleeping in there. And the groundskeeper happens to catch that he's breaking in there and sleeping there. So anyways, the old groundskeeper, he sets him up with some blankets and gives him a key to the place. And he ends up giving him a job, okay, so that he can help earn his way through college. So he finds out from this guy that even though he works for Notre Dame, he takes care of the stadium, Notre Dame Stadium. You know, he does all the painting and all this kind of stuff, but he's never sat and watched a game. So he's just fascinated at that. But anyways, Rudy finds out while he's there, he befriends this teaching assistant, and he finds out that he has dyslexia. He's having a hard time trying to grasp words and this and that. So he starts to overcome his dyslexia, and he becomes a better student. Anyways, at Christmas, Rudy goes home, and, you know, everybody's proud of him that he's made it into college, and he's just doing all this great stuff in his achievements, but his older brother is mocking him because Rudy wants to try to make the football team. Now, Rudy is not a big guy, okay? I mean, he is not a big guy at all. And you know, he is constantly getting ridiculed by his older brother. You know, oh, you can't do it. There's no way you're ever going to make it on the football team. Anyways, so after a couple years at Holy Cross, he finally gets accepted into Notre Dame. His dream come true. Well, when he gets to Notre Dame, now he wants to get on the football team. Well, I mean, you got this little guy next to these big giant of guys, okay? And, you know, he first comes out on the field and everybody's kind of snickering and this and that because there's no way this guy's going to make it. He's a walk-on. And anyways, you know, so he finally convinces the coach to give him a chance on the daily practice squad. And he's just got this hope in his heart that one day he's going to be able to dress for at least one game That's his goal, to dress for at least one game. But now here he is, he's on the daily practice squad, but his family don't believe he's on the team. They never see him take the field because he doesn't take the field. He's behind the scenes on the team. But they can't see him on TV, so they don't believe he's even playing. Okay? And so, anyways, through all this, one of the coaches starts to notice Rudy's determination. That he's constantly getting knocked down, but he gets right back up. And anyways, they finally agree that the head coach, he's put in such hard work all year that the head coach finally agrees, Rudy, we're going to let you play the last in your senior year. Now this is his junior year. We're going to let you play in your senior year. We're going to dress you at least one game because you've just had that heart. Well, lo and behold, that coach retires at the end of that season. And a new coach comes in, and the new coach don't want anything to do with Rudy on the team. So the coach refuses to let Rudy on a game day roster. You know, he's like, anyhow. But Rudy keeps fighting every day. Every day he's giving 100%. Every day he's getting knocked down. Every day he just keeps getting tortured by these huge guys. And some of the guys on the team now get mad at him because he puts in such determination, such fierceness, it makes them look bad because they're not putting in enough. And they're getting mad at him because it's making them look bad. Anyways, then comes the final week of practice for the final game. And Rudy isn't on the dress list. Now he's went through all this hoping he can make the game. So he says, that's it, I'm quitting. So he goes to give his key to the old groundskeeper, and the old groundskeeper takes his key and he tells him, he says, Rudy, you don't want to do this. You don't want to quit. So he begins to tell Rudy that he was actually a player at Notre Dame, and that he had dressed. He sat on the bench. And he got mad at the coaches because they weren't playing him enough. And so he thought it was because of his skin color that he wasn't getting played enough. So he held a grudge and he quit the team. So he begins to tell him this story, and Rudy just says, all right, I'm not going to regret this the rest of my life. So he goes back, he walks back out on the practice field, and all of his teammates start to embrace him. Anyways, all of the teammates, all the senior teammates, walk into the coach's office, and they begin to lay their jerseys on his desk and say, Rudy can dress in my place. Rudy can dress in my place. And one by one. So the coach has no choice. He's got to dress the team. So they let him dress, and then the seniors want him to lead them out of the tunnel to open up the game. So he gets to do that, and he gets on, of course, now he's on the sidelines, and that's all the coach promised he would get to dress. But with about 3.5 minutes left in the game, thereabouts, they're up 17-3, and the coach wants to start going into victory formation. In other words, he just wants to run the clock out. Let's get this over with. And Notre Dame is playing Georgia Tech. So the fans start to chant Rudy in the stands. There had been an article in the school newspaper about Rudy. And they see him on the sideline, they begin to chant his name. Well, then one of the offensive players that helped lead the jersey thing in the coach's office, he starts to chant. And pretty soon the whole team starts to chant. So they finally put him in. They put him in take it back. They go against the coach. He had said to go into the victory formation. The tight end and the quarterback decide we have to get another score up so the coach will actually put Rudy into the game. So they defy the coach and they throw a touchdown pass and score securing the game so that Rudy can get on the field. So he gets on the field in a special teams play. And if you don't ever take the field, your name never gets on that you played for Notre Dame. Okay? So Long story short, he gets on the field, and the last play of the game, he sacks the quarterback. And he's carried off the field by the entire team. Now, I've given that because a lot of times we don't see the things that we need to see. Rudy Ruettiger graduated in 1976, and because he graduated Notre Dame, all of his brothers graduated college. All of them went to college. All of his younger brothers went to college and graduated.
Praise God.
Go to 1 Samuel chapter 16. Now, this is going to be the story of Samuel going to anoint David as king. And it says, and the Lord, I'm going to start in verse 1. And the Lord said unto Samuel, how long will you mourn for Saul, seeing I've rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go, and I will send you to Jesse of Bethel, for I have proclaimed me a king among his sons. And Samuel said, how can I go? If Saul hear it, he's going to kill me. The Lord said, take a heifer with you and say, I am come to sacrifice to the Lord. And Jesse said, and call Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. And thou shalt anoint unto him whom I name to you. And Samuel did as the Lord spoke, and came to Bethel, and the elders of the town trembled at his coming and said, comest you peacefully? And he said, peacefully, I've come to sacrifice unto the Lord. Sanctify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice. And he sanctified Jesse and his sons and called them to the sacrifice. And it came to pass that when they were come, that he looked on Eliab and said, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. But the Lord said to Samuel, look not on his countenance or the height of his stature, because I've refused him. For the Lord seeth not as a man sees, for the Lord looks on the man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel, and he said, neither has the Lord chosen this. And then Jesse made Shammah to pass by, and he said, neither has the Lord chosen this. Again, Jesse made 7 of his sons to pass before Samuel, and Samuel said to Jesse, the Lord hath not chosen these. And Samuel said to Jesse, here are all thy children. And he said, there remaineth yet the youngest, and behold, he's keeping the sheep. And Samuel said to Jesse, send forth and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he comes here. and he sent and brought him. Now he was ruddy, and withal of a beautiful countenance, and goodly to look at. And the Lord said, arise and anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil, and anointed him in the midst of his brethren, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. All right, go over to the next chapter, chapter 17, verse 4. This we're going to talk about. Now he's going to face Goliath. It says there went out a champion, chapter 17, verse 4. There went out a champion of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath, of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. And he had a helmet of brass upon his head, and was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of that coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and the target of brass between his shoulders, and the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear head weighed 600 shekels of iron. And one bearing the shield went before him, and he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, why are you come out to set your battle in array. Am not I a Philistine, and you servants to Saul? Choose a man for you to let him come down to me. But if he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall you be our servants and serve us. And the Philistine said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all of Israel heard the words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Let's drop down to verse 20. David arose early in the morning and left the sheep with the keeper and went as Jesse had commanded him. He came to the trench as the host was going forth to the fight and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage and ran into the army and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spoke according to the same words. And David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, they fled from before him, and they were so afraid. And the men of Israel said, have you seen this man that has come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up, and it shall be that the man who kills him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spoke to the men that stood by, saying, what shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine and taketh away the reproach from Israel? And I love these words. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that should defy the armies of the living God? Now, most of us know the rest of this story. If you've been in church any time at all, you know that David goes out. He goes before King Saul, and King Saul tries to put his garments on him. He tries to make him like himself. And eventually David goes out to fight Goliath. He picks up his 5 stones and he walks on the battlefield just as he is. And I want to use this story to speak some words of encouragement to some folks today, because last week I heard some very discouraging thoughts as people left. As I spoke the message last week about Joseph and how everyone here has been set up to do what God has called them to do. We need to understand who we are. Just because we look around, and it may appear on the outside, folks, that we don't stand a chance to do what God has called us to do. It may appear to you that you don't have what it takes. But God says otherwise. Amen. I want to remind you that God doesn't look on the exterior. He looks at the heart. And the reason Rudy finally got the respect he was due is because he refused to give up. He refused to give up. Even though he had a learning disability, he refused to give up. Even though he wanted to make the football team, and it appeared like he was way too small to make the football team, he didn't give up. And because he had a heart, and because he refused to give up, somebody said, I'm going to take a chance on you. See, he kept fighting and pushing back because he was convinced that he could do it. And even though there was a moment in his life when he said, I can't do this. I can't take this anymore. You know, sometimes we get that attitude of what's the use? What's the use? You know, we look around here in the church and we go, well, there's only 25. You know, what's the use? What's the use? Maybe everybody's right. Maybe everybody's right. We're just not good enough. See, I think we've all been in a position in life to where we had that thought about ourselves. That maybe I just can't cut this, maybe I need to do this instead of doing this. And we've all went through those battles. We feel like that the fight is not worth fighting sometimes, right? Come on. Sometimes you get wore out in the fight, right? Sometimes the battle is hard. God never promised you it's going to be easy. He just said he'd be with you through the fight. So we need to understand who we are. And this is the thing that we have such trouble with is, sometimes I can feel like I'm making great strides, but I just can't win. And we get that mentality that I'm making strides, but I just can't win. Yes, you can. You can win. We have to dig deep sometimes when we get that attitude. We got to dig way down where it's at and say, I can win this fight. Because God said I can win this fight. See, Rudy went back and took the field. He fought through because he knew in his heart he could do it. Even though everybody around him didn't think he could do it. I mean, his brothers, his family, his dad, nobody thought he could make the team. Even the people on the team didn't believe he could make the team. But he finally convinced them. He had such a heart that there was no way that they couldn't allow him on the team. Because he inspired everybody around him. He inspired them to do better. He fought through. He fought through. So that is something that we cannot measure, and only God can measure, is what our heart is. How big our heart is. David wasn't the oldest of his brothers. He wasn't the biggest of his brothers. He didn't look like he should be the king of Israel. Even Samuel's going, you sure? Right? I mean, come on, this guy over here, man, he looks anointed. I'm sure he was, big old hefty guy and, looked like a warrior. No. David was a young, good-looking boy. But he was a boy. Didn't look like he should be on the team. Didn't look like he should be king. But David didn't see himself the way everybody else saw himself. David knew that he'd whooped lions. He knew he'd whooped bears. He'd kept the sheep safe. He knew what he had inside of him. And when he went out to face Goliath, that's what he counted on. He knew who his God was, and he knew what he was capable of. And together, wasn't nobody going to whip him.
Amen.
See, sometimes we have to look at what the giant that we're facing in our life and understand that God will carry us through the fight. Amen. But we must take the field. You can't give up. We can't give up. We have to stay on the field. Because if we leave the field, then you leave it open for something else. Israel had determined in their heart that they couldn't defeat this Goliath. They were already whipped before they got on the battlefield. See, this is similar. Go to Numbers chapter 13. This is very similar to what had happened to Israel hundreds of years earlier. As Israel is poised to enter into the land, Moses is going to send 12 spies ahead of them to see how they're going to go into the land. Now they come back and say, uh-oh. Let's read verse 25 through 33. Numbers 13, 25 through 33. It says, and they returned from searching of the land after 40 days, and they went and came to Moses and to Aaron and to all the congregation of the children of Israel unto the wilderness of Paran to Kadesh, and brought back word unto them, unto all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told him and said, we came unto the land where you sent us, and surely it flows with milk and honey. And here's the fruit of it. Now, I'm going to stop right there. God has promised Israel the land flowing with milk and honey since he brought them out of Egypt. Now, they've seen all these great miracles. They've seen all these things take place in their lives. Not in somebody else's life. They've experienced it themselves.
That's right.
And God has said, I'm going to take you to the land and give you the land flowing with milk and honey. That was his promise when he brought them out. So, verse 28, it says, nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land. The cities are walled and very great. Moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. But the men that went up with him said, we are not able. We're not able to go up against the people, for they're stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land, which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, the land through which we have gone and searched, it is a land eaten up, the inhabitants thereof. And all the people saw that there are great men of a great stature. And there we saw the giants, the son of Anak, which come of the giants. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers. And so we were in their sight. See, the 10 men saw themselves as weak. They saw themselves as small. And because they didn't believe what God had said to them, we know the story. They get to spend another 40 years wandering in the wilderness. Only two men have a heart to say, yes, we can do this. 2 men out of 12 say, I don't care what it looks like, boys. We can take this fight because God said we can. God said if we'll just go in, he'll give us the victory. Caleb was a little different than most of the other guys. And Joshua, as we all know, is appointed minister to Israel when Moses passes away. We have to understand that Caleb has a heart after God. Joshua has a heart after God. The other 10 didn't have a heart after God. They had no heart at all. They wanted what was in the land, but they refused to fight what needed to be fought to get to the land. Rudy knew what the football game was all about, but he had to make it on the team. Sometimes we have to face the giants that are before us. We can't just walk through life and not face things. Caleb had a heart. David had a heart. I mean, does not Scripture say that David has a heart after my own? David had a heart. Caleb had a heart. I mean, so much of a heart that he is able to whip everybody that he goes against in his old age. Every one of us get knocked down in life. And we too must have a heart. We cannot fear. We cannot be ashamed. When we get knocked down, we have to get back up. Every one of us has had something in our lives that has taken place at some time or another that we're either ashamed of or wish it never happened. David had something that had happened in his life that he wished had never happened. Abraham, I mean, he went and he decided he's going to fib and lie really good. And then he decided, to take his wife's advice and have a son that he shouldn't have never had. And, we've all done stuff in our lives that we can look back on and go, boy, I wish I hadn't have done that. But you can't stop getting up. You can't stop fighting. So God didn't say that you wasn't going to get knocked down. Never told us that we wouldn't get knocked down. He never said we wouldn't have to fight. He just said he would be with us. As a matter of fact, he tells us through the Apostle Paul to put on the full armor of God. Now, I just an idea here, but what's the purpose of having armor if there's no fight to be fought? And the only reason you need protection is if you're going to go out to a fight. Because something's coming against you if you get to put on armor. The trick is not to give up. The trick is that we cannot be mentally taken off the field. When we're taken off the field, we lose. We can't look at our problems and say that giant is just too big to face. Now, I don't know what anybody's got going on in their life, but you can't look at any problem in life and say, it's too big. It's not too big. It's not too big for God. We have to consider that Caleb, he beat those giants. I mean, the giants were still there when they went back 40 years later. The giants didn't go anywhere. Now, we know the story. We know that David went out there and he beat Goliath fair and square. He put a stone right between his eyes. And you know what? He scared the Philistines off. But they ended up having to face the giants. My point is the very giants that the men before refused to face. And the men that David watched be afraid to go out and face this man. And here's a young boy that has no business even being on the team. Matter of fact, they don't even want him there. They try to send him back home. And he goes out and stands up for the God of Israel. And as I said, I love that line. You know, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that would defy the God of Israel? That defies the God that has ordained something in my life. Who is this? What is it that stands in your way of destiny? God has said to each and every person that if you are in the Messiah, you can overcome. Messiah said this. He says, you know, with men it's impossible, but with God all things are possible. Not some things, all things are possible. There is nothing too hard for God. Trying to do it in the flesh, that's impossible. But guess what? When you have a heart, man, when you have a heart for God, you're not doing it in the flesh. When you have a heart to get on the team, it's not of the flesh, it's inside of you. Because Rudy didn't have it in the flesh. He just didn't have it. Trying to do things in the flesh will get you defeated. But you will never defeat your giants in life trying to do it on your own. You must do it with God. Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. And I just add to that, if he be for us, if he is giving you strength, then who could stand against you? See, there is nothing that you have been called to do that he will not equip you to do. So take heart and know that God will see you through the battle, but you can't walk off the field. You can't simply because I challenge the people of this church, run to another church. That is not going to get it done. That's walking off the field. You can't walk off the field of life. Sooner or later, you're going to have to face your giants. You're either going to face them now or you're going to face them at some point in time. They're going to be the same giants that they were before. You're going to have to take heart and know that God will carry you through the battle, but you can't just run off the field. You cannot take the mindset of Israel that whatever is raising its head against you is greater than you. No, he said that greater is he that is in you that is in the world. And it says there when he says that in 1 John, he says that we are of God. We are of God. So if we are of God and God be for us, and who can stand against us, then what is the problem? When people tell me, well, I can't understand that, what is the problem? I'm going to tell you what the problem is. There's no heart. There's no heart after God. That's the problem. There is no heart for everything that God wants in our lives. That's the problem. The problem is that we decide what we want instead of what God wants, and we make ourselves God instead of allowing Him to be God. See, we are the children of God, and greater is He in us than he that is in the world. And you can overcome. You can overcome. You can overcome anything that you want to, but you cannot give up. You can't be an overcomer if there's not something to overcome. He would never call you an overcomer unless there was something that you had to overcome in life. And I just say this from my own personal experience. People don't, I'm going to talk about myself for just a minute. People don't know how much pain I stand in when I stand on Wednesday nights or Friday nights and Sundays. That I stand here only because of the grace of God gives me the strength to stand here. Because most days I have a hard time standing up, let alone standing for the time that I do. But I don't get off the field. I'm not going to get off the field because greater is He that is in me. I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. And there's days that I don't think I can do it. And God will say, get up. And I say, okay. Because I've got a job to do. He equipped me for something. He's equipped you for something. Stop saying that you can't do it, because you can. So I just want you to look at the giant in your life, whatever that may happen to be, and simply say, you're not that big. I can whip your tail. You are not going to defeat me. Not today, not tomorrow, not any day. And if you think that, pack your lunch. Now that's what I used to say to guys when I was in high school. Brother, you may whip me, but I'm going to pack my lunch. You know, you may whip me today, you may whip me tomorrow, but sooner or later, I'm going to whip you. Save me a lot of fights. Just simply say, you know what, I'm going to be like David. I'm going to walk out there and pick up my stones. And I'm going to have my sling ready. And when you step on the field, I'm going to take you down. I'm going to be like Caleb. I don't care what age you are. Caleb was an old man when he went into the land of Israel. And he was able to defeat every enemy that come against him. I don't care what age you are. That tells me that it doesn't matter what age you are. God can strengthen your body no matter what age you are. So just simply say, I'm going to be like Caleb, and I'm going to defeat any enemy that comes against me. I'm going to be like Rudy. Every time I get knocked down, I'm going to jump back up. Every time I get knocked down, I'm going to jump back up, and ain't nothing going to keep me down. I'm going to get up, and one day, I'm going to be just like it was with Rudy. I'm going to get carried off the field by the heavenly host. And I'm going to stand before the throne of God, and I'm going to hear those words that ring, well done. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. I hope that is our goal. I hope our goal is not just to come to church and sing a song and go home. I hope our goal is so much more than that. Because while singing songs is great, that's not what God has called us to. God has called us to a lifestyle of worship. An entire lifestyle of worship. It's not about singing a song on Sunday or on Friday or on Saturday or whatever day you worship. It's about living your life each and every moment in a worship to the Father. That's what He has called us to. And I have challenged people for the last 15 years to walk that out. And I've tried to teach them how they can walk that out and how they can stand before the enemy without any armor and still take down the enemy. Though he looks like he's undefeatable, with one shot, you take him down. We have listened to the promise of God. We have seen the miracles. We've seen people get healed of cancer. We've seen people get out of wheelchairs. We've seen miracles take place in people's lives of things that they never thought there was any way it could happen. And yet, there was God. We've seen people overcome addiction. We've seen people overcome all kinds of things. And it wasn't by their own strength, but they had to take the field. Liz, I'll close with this. Don't be like the spies that refused and said, we can't do this. We can't. My dad used to say, can't never did anything. Can't never could. And so many people I hear, well, I can't. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And we can do this. Look, I just say this, and I'm going to hush my mouth. Because like I said, it's not a long sermon. I just say that there are things that we can do as a body because we have a heart that other congregations can't do because they have no heart. The reason God has used us in special ways, even as a small body, is because we have a heart after Him. And He will continue to use us that way if we will continue to have that heart that says, yes, I can. Yes, we can. We can do all these things. If He's called us to it, He'll equip us for it, and He will take us through it. But we have to take the field. I don't know. Look, I don't know what people are dealing with in their lives. I just wanted to give an encouraging word. I gave a word last week that seemed to shock people and seemed to. I don't want you to be shocked. I want you to stand up and say, God has called me to it. He's going to equip me for it, and He's going to walk me through it. He has called you to be special because you are special. He's called you because you have a heart. Yes, you're going to get knocked down. Yes, there are going to be times when it feels like I can't keep this fight up. Yes, you can. Every time it gets to that point, dig down deep and say, Father, show me where that strength is at because I know I have it in me. Don't be discouraged. Don't give up. Because God is about to do something great in each and every one of your lives. Things may get bad. Don't give up and don't walk off the field. And you're going to turn and give God all the praise and all the glory. Amen?
Glory. In Isaiah it says,
Foundation Stones is a ministry outreach of His Gathering House. If you would like to know more about this ministry or other ministries associated with His Gathering House, or would like to support this ministry, please visit us at hisgatheringhouse.org or write us at His Gathering House, 2009 2nd Avenue, Phoenix City, Alabama, 36867.